Good morning, transfers are Arsenal prepare Victor Froholdt move as 50M plus price tag emerges. Good morning and welcome to Arsenal Chronicles. This is your latest Arsenal transfer update. And today we have a fascinating story involving one of the most exciting young midfielders in European football. Arsenal have reportedly learned the price it could take to sign FC Porto sensation Victor Froholdt this summer, with fresh reports suggesting the Danish midfielder has become a serious player under observation by Mikel Arteta's recruitment team. Now, at first glance, some Arsenal supporters might ask a simple question. Why would Arsenal be looking at another midfielder? After all, Declan Rice remains one of the Premier League's most dominant midfielders. Martin Zubimendi has already strengthened the squad. Martin Odegaard remains the captain and creative heartbeat of the team. Miles Lewis-Skelly continues to develop rapidly. And yet, despite all of that, Victor Froholdt's name continues to appear in discussions surrounding Arsenal's summer plans. And the reason is very simple. Elite clubs never stop planning. Elite clubs never stop improving. Elite clubs never stop searching for the next superstar before the rest of Europe catches up. And that is exactly why Arsenal scouts have spent months monitoring Victor Froholdt. Let's begin with the latest information. Reports from Denmark suggest Arsenal remain among several Premier League clubs closely tracking the Porto midfielder. Liverpool are interested. Newcastle are interested. Several European giants are monitoring the situation. But Arsenal remain firmly in the conversation. The challenge? FC Porto do not want to sell. Not this summer, not easily, and certainly not cheaply. According to reports from Portugal, Porto have protected themselves with an enormous release clause worth 85 million. That immediately changes the conversation, because we're no longer talking about a promising young midfielder available for 25 million or 30 million. We're talking about a player Porto already view as one of the foundations of their future. And when clubs value players that highly, negotiations become extremely difficult. Now let's take a closer look at why Arsenal are paying attention. Victor Froholdt only arrived in Portugal last summer from FC Copenhagen. Many expected him to need time. Many expected him to adapt slowly. Many expected the minutes played. 8 goals, 6 assists, a central role in Porto's title-winning campaign. And perhaps most impressively of all, he became one of the first names on the team sheet. That is extraordinary for a player still only 20 years old. Porto supporters quickly fell in love with him. Managers trusted him. Teammates relied upon him. And football analysts across Europe suddenly began paying attention. One Portuguese football expert recently described him as the best player in the entire league this season. That is not praise handed out lightly, especially in a competition containing experienced internationals and established stars. Yet Froholdt consistently stood out. His performances were impossible to ignore. So what exactly makes him special? Well, if you watch Victor Froholdt closely, you'll notice something immediately. He appears to be everywhere. One minute he's breaking up attacks. The next minute he's driving forward with the ball. Then he's creating chances. Then he's arriving inside the penalty area. Then he's helping defend once again. He's the definition of a modern midfielder. Complete, energetic, technically gifted, tactically intelligent. And perhaps most importantly for Arsenal, extremely versatile. Tactical demands. Victor Froholdt fits that profile perfectly. He can operate deeper. He can play box to box. He can contribute creatively. And he can press aggressively when required. Those qualities naturally attract clubs competing at the highest level. But there is another factor making this story particularly interesting: Andrea Berta. Since arriving at Arsenal, Berta has earned a reputation as one of the smartest recruitment minds in European football. His greatest strength has always been identifying elite talent before prices become completely impossible. And some within football believe Froholdt fits exactly that category. Because while under 85 million sounds enormous today, there are many scouts who believe his value could increase dramatically over the next 2 or 3 years. Remember what happened with players like Rodri, Enzo Fernandez, Declan Rice, Martin Zubimendi. The market for elite midfielders has exploded. If Arsenal genuinely believe Froholdt can become one of Europe's best midfielders, investing early may actually save money in the long run. Of course, Porto have their own plans. Club president André Boas reportedly views Froholdt as central to the club's future. The Portuguese giants are preparing for another title challenge. They're preparing for Champions League football. And they have no intention of dismantling their core squad. That's why Porto remain relaxed. The player is under contract until 2030. The release clause is enormous. And perhaps most importantly, the player himself appears happy. Speaking after winning the Portuguese title, Froholdt made his position very clear. He said he would love to stay at Porto next season. He said he wants to play Champions League football with the club, and he emphasised how settled and comfortable he feels in Portugal. That matters. Because modern transfers are rarely completed without player pressure, and Froholdt is doing that, which means Arsenal would face 2 major challenges: convincing Porto and convincing the player. Now the task will be easy. Yet Arsenal continue to watch, and that alone tells us something important. Because Arsenal scouts don't spend months monitoring players they don't genuinely admire. Every report coming out of Portugal points towards sustained interest, careful observation, detailed analysis, and serious admiration. The next question Arsenal supporters will ask is simple. Would Victor Froholdt actually improve the squad? The answer depends on how Arteta views the future. If Arsenal are simply looking for depth, then there are cheaper options available. But if Arsenal believe Froholdt could eventually become one of the best midfielders in Europe, then the calculation changes completely. Suddenly, you're not buying a squad player, you're investing in a future superstar. A player who could dominate Arsenal's midfield for the next decade. And that's why this story deserves attention. Because while no official bid has been submitted, while Porto remain determined to keep him, while the player appears happy, the interest itself is real. And in modern football, transfer stories can evolve incredibly quickly. Today, a player wants to stay. Tomorrow, a major offer arrives. Next week, negotiations begin. And suddenly, an impossible transfer becomes a realistic possibility. For now, Arsenal continue monitoring developments. Porto remain confident. The player remains settled. And Andrea Berta continues evaluating one of the most exciting midfield prospects in European football. But one thing is becoming increasingly clear. Victor Froholdt is no longer a hidden gem. Europe's biggest clubs are watching, Arsenal are watching, and if his remarkable rise continues, the battle for his signature could become one of the most intriguing transfer stories of the coming months. Stay tuned, because this story is only just beginning.